Hello chess enthusiasts, my name is Micha and welcome to my chessrealm YouTube channel. So another interesting game from the recently ended US Championship. Fabiano Caruana won, by the way, from the 5th round between Robson and Jeffery Xiong. Let's see what happened. Robson had white pieces and he started with e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to f6, and we have Petrov or Russian defense, however you want to call it. White usually captures pawn on e5. But white goes for this d4 variation, so d4 was played, knight captures on e4, bishop to d3, d5, knight captures on e5, knight to d7, so more or less standard moves. Now white castles king side, knight captures on e5, d pawn recaptures, and now knight to c5 attacking the bishop. But white continues with the development, bishop goes to e3, bishop to e7, f4, knight captures bishop on d3, queen recaptures. Black probably expects this f5 pawn push, so g6 was played, protecting f5 square, preparing maybe bishop to f5. Anyway, white continues with knight to c3, double attack on pawn on d5, so black doesn't have time for this bishop to f5. Instead, c6 was played, knight goes to e2. Now here was the last chance to play bishop to f5, but no, black castles king side, and now knight goes to g3. f5 square is protected. Black continues with bishop to h4, preparing to remove the defender of this f5 square. White responds with bishop to c5, attacking the rook. Rook goes to e8, and now finally f5. So white has decided to sacrifice this e-pawn in order to demolish pawn structure around black king. Rook captures on e5 was played, as black has no other alternatives. F-pawn captures on g6, h-pawn recaptures, and now bishop to d4. White is taking over the long diagonal and also attacking the rook. Now maybe the best option would be rook to e6, because then this g6 pawn would be more protected. You'll see later why is that important in the game. However, rook goes back to e8 was played. Well, white is a pawn down, and all black needs to do is to activate his queen and would be better. So white has to act fast. Rook captures pawn on f7 was played. So we have a stunning rook sacrifice, removing the defender of this g6 pawn. So black more or less has no other option but to capture rook. So king captures rook on f7, rook goes to f1, check. Well, king, let's say, has three options. If king goes to g8, then queen to g6 is checkmate immediately. So in the game, king to e7 was played. Now queen captures pawn on g6, threatening with rook to f7 with checkmate. Now this is a critical moment. Black is a rook up, but white has a serious threat. Still, black had a chance to save the draw, and the correct continuation in this position is would be king to d7. After king to d7, now black can activate his queen to g5. So after rook to f7 check, rook to e7 defending. Well, here if white trades the rooks, loses the initiative and it's simply a rook down. So white would probably continue the attack with knight to f5, targeting the rook. And after rook would capture on s7, queen would recapture on s7. The only way to defend the check without losing the material is bishop to e7. But then bishop to c5. Bishop on e7 is pinned and 3 times attacked, but queen to f8 saves the game. Now white cannot trade the queen because he would be an exchange down. So after queen to h7, then king goes to e8 out of the pin. Even if knight captures bishop on e7, then queen to f4. Now here black is going for perpetual check. Let's see, After maybe knight captures on c8, white threatens queen to e7 with mate. But black checks with queen to c1, king to f2, queen to f4. White king cannot escape, black checks, and moreover he has to be careful not to run in any kind of first rank mate. And if maybe queen reaches e4 square with check, it can even defend e7 square. So even white would have to be careful here, and therefore black can easily save the draw. In the game, in this position, black makes a fatal blunder. Bishop to e6 was played. So yes, black is protecting this f7 square, but now king gets a special treatment. Queen goes to g7 check, king to d6, bishop to e5 check, king goes to c5 as there isn't any other option, and now bishop goes to d4 check, and king goes back to d6, and again bishop to e5 check, king goes to c5. So white has repeated the position once, but now white has found the correct continuation. Bishop goes to c7, attacking the queen, but mating threats are far more concerning. If black plays a random move, let's say if he removes the queen to c8, then queen goes to c3, check king to b5, and now a4 check. Now king can go to a6, but even if king captures pawn on a4, still queen to a5 is checkmate. So in the game, bishop to f6 was played, blocking the diagonal and counter-attacking the queen. Rook captures bishop on f6. Rook goes to g8, again attacking the queen. Well, queen defends the rook on f6, who is under attack, so white cannot remove the queen. Instead, white plays another stunning move. Knight goes to e4 check. Well, black has a few options. If d pawn captures knight on e4, then rook to f5 check. And now, if king goes to c4 or b4, then queen to c3 mates immediately. So after bishop captures on f5, queen to c3 check, king has two options. If king goes to b5, then a4. King to a4 is the only option, and queen to a5 is checkmate. If king to d5, then queen to e5 check, king c4, b3, king to b4, and queen to a5 is checkmate. Well, if black doesn't want to capture the knight, then after maybe king to c4, rook to f4 is a killer move. Queen is at stake, but if rook captures queen on g7, then knight to d6 have double check, king to c5 is the only move, and b4 is checkmate. If you might think that here d4 interfering the fourth rank saves black, well, check out for this. Knight goes to d2, king to c5, queen to e5, queen to d5, and now knight to b3, check. King to b5 is the only option, and now c4, check, and queen is also under attack. If king captures on c4, queen d4, queen d4, rook d4, king to b5, a4, king to a6, and knight to c5 is checkmate. If maybe d pawn captures en passant, then a4, king to a6, the only option, queen to d5, c pawn captures on d5, and knight to c5 again, checkmate. There are other variations, but in all of them black is lost. Okay, so in the game, In this position, king goes to b5. And now it continues with a4 check. If king captures on a4, then knight to c3. Later with rook to f4 would be deadly. So king to b4 was played, and now queen to h6 is the last nail in the coffin. If black plays a random move, let's say a6, then queen to c2, king to c4, b3 is checkmate. After king to a4, queen to a5 is also checkmate. If d pawn captures knight, bishop captures queen, winning decisive material advantage. And if queen captures bishop on c7, then queen to d2, king to c4, that would be mate in 1. So after king to a4, knight to c3, check. If king goes to a5 or b4, doesn't matter, we have knight to d4, discover check and attack on the queen. Black loses decisive material, and moreover it's force mate. Let's see. King to c4, b3, king to c5, b4, king to b5, queen to d3, king a4, queen to b3, king to b5, c4, king a6, queen a3, queen a5, queen a5 is checkmate. And realizing that all is lost, in this position, Jeffery Xiong resigned the game. So, hope you like this game. I hope you have learned something from it. If you have any questions, my email is below in the description. Of course, I invite you to visit my Instagram page. That's it for now, and see you soon.